people. President Biden has claimed since the 2020 election that his family has not received money from China. That was a lie in 2020, and he continues to lie to the American people now. The committee is concerned by the complicated, suspicious network of over 20 companies. The bank records show the Biden family, their associates, and their companies received over $10 million from foreign nationals and their companies.
And we see that repeated over and over again. Siphoned off 30% or $1 million to Hunter Biden, James Biden, Hallie Biden, why she would need that, and an unknown Biden bank account. The Biden family needs to answer for
something
this.
that does merit scrutiny. The analysis found millions of dollars flowing to Hunter Biden and his company. A big chunk of it came from Chinese partners, including a businessman now accused of fraud. The feds are currently investigating Hunter Biden's taxes. The president's son has denied any illegal activity and says he's fully cooperating with the probe.
A Senate committee. During the campaign, then candidate Biden denied his son profited off a China connection.
My son has not made money in terms of this thing about, what are you talking about, China.
The records show Hunter Biden's company received nearly $5 million in consulting contracts from that joint venture funded by a Chinese energy company. A snapshot of Hunter Biden's spending shows that for about 5 months in late 2017 and early 2018, he spent more than $200,000 a month on things like luxury hotel rooms, cash withdrawals, dental work, and payments on a Porsche, according to documents on the hard drive, a time period in which Hunter Biden has acknowledged struggling with drug addiction.
Deception. A lot of people would say corruption. But let's be very clear. You have this many companies involved, this velocity of transactions, size of transactions. Like my colleagues have said, this is not how normal businesses operate. I had the ability with Chairman Comer and other members of the committee to go over to the Treasury building and review documents. And having read those documents, one thing became pretty crystal clear, that there were many people who had serious questions about the transactions and about the velocity of these transactions, and they either get very, very deep into concealment, hiding money, shifting money, and for the purpose, we don't know, because one thing everybody in this room and the American people definitely know is that the Biden family doesn't really have a business. There is no business structure around this family except politics. And since Joe Biden has spent decades in the Senate, served 8 years as vice president, and is now president of the United States, and the family's getting money from various countries and foreign businesses through various shell companies and this web of LLCs. I mean, guys, you in the press, this is easy pickings. I'm giving you Pulitzer stuff here. Like, all you have to do is literally look at our memo and see the level of detail upon which they have created this. And it's very, very frustrating. We have now been able to clearly see that the Biden's associates, like Rob Walker, Eric Sherman, as has been discussed, created at least 16 companies while Joe Biden was vice president of the United States. 16 companies created while he was vice president. Now the list is 20, and as we continue our investigation, that list is growing. And like I said before, the question is, to serve what purpose? And the purpose of all these companies being created is to conceal money that the Biden family has been gaining because Joe Biden has been sitting at the upper echelon of our politics for almost 5 decades. That is the entire purpose here. Here's an example of what I mean. You have Rosemont Seneca Partners, Rosemont Seneca Advisors, Rosemont Seneca Technology Partners, RSP Holdings, RSTP2 Alpha, RSTP2 Bravo, Rosemont Seneca Thornton, Rosemont Seneca Bohai. I want to make sure I pronounce it right. Bohai, B-O-H-A-I. And the list goes on and on. Cycling through this many companies serves no legitimate purpose. And as somebody who actually worked in banking, I did that long before I came here. Whenever there was like this many companies just laying all over the place, and you see wire transfers and cashier checks over here going to random members of the family for no apparent purpose at the size and velocity at which all of this was being conducted, the only logical conclusion of a financial professional is you are concealing money. Let me restate this. You are concealing money from either the IRS or from credit agencies or from other people in general. That's the only reason you set up a structure like this. Some of these companies were connected to Hunter's personal professional company, Oswego, or Skinny Atlas, Scale Atlas, however you want to pronounce it. And the list goes on. And Mr. Biggs, he talked about Hudson West 3 and some of those other issues that were going on as well. One thing I want to make sure is that all of this has happened and Joe Biden is aware. Nobody in this room can logically sit here and say that the President of the United States had no idea that these companies were being formed while he was Vice President of the United States. And I will add you, he was probably in better mental shape then than he is today. You know, I'll throw that out there. And so what this committee is going to continue to do is pursue this investigation. We are going to continue to document, and we're going to provide that information to all of you in the press. So to help you, and frankly, you know, like Congresswoman Mace said, and probably help the DOJ along with their investigation. One quick note, it's interesting that the Department of Justice has been investigating Hunter Biden for quite some time, and we seem to just never really get anywhere. And so I think that's also interesting as well. I wonder what's going on at the Department of Justice. But that being said, the bottom line is there is no real business here. None. And let me also say this, because I know there are many in this room who wanted to go down all the various schemes that our colleagues on the other side of the aisle accused the former president of. Be very clear. The former president actually had a business, very big business. You could say it was his name. You could say it was his buildings. You could say it was wine. You could say it was branding. You could say it was The Apprentice. But he had a very big and legitimate business, which everybody in this room clearly knows and understands and can point to and say, that's the thing, that thing over there. Joe Biden has no business except his position in politics. And it is the requirement of this committee to investigate that. We're going to continue to do that.
You have spoken. You also spoke with an informant who gave you all of this information. Where is that informant today? Where are these whistleblowers?
Well, unfortunately, we can't track down the informant. We're hopeful that the informant is still there. The whistleblower knows the informant. The whistleblower is very credible. And all we're asking the FBI with respect to the Form 1023 is, what did you do to investigate this allegation?
Hold on a second, Congressman. Did you just say that the whistleblower or the informant is now missing?
Well, we're hopeful that we can find the informant. Now, remember, these informants are kind of in the spy business, so they don't make a habit of being seen a lot or being high profile or anything like that. We have basic information with respect to what the informant has alleged, and it's very serious. It alleges that Joe Biden, when he was vice president, was involved in a quid pro quo with a foreign country in exchange for foreign aid.
Recognize that we must keep government open, that a shutdown is not worth anything, and that you should not have a Trump shutdown. You have the White House, the Trump shutdown. You have the White House. You have the Senate. You have the House of Representatives. You have the votes. You should pass it right now.
No, we don't have the votes, Nancy, because in the Senate we need 60 votes.
No, but in the House.
And we don't
you
have.
You could bring it up right now
but
today.
I can't, excuse me, but I can't get it passed in the House if it's not going to pass in the Senate. I don't want to waste time.
Well, the fact is you can get it started that way.
The House we could get passed very easily,
Okay,
and we
then
do.
do it. Then
But
do
the
it.
problem is the Senate, because we need 10 Democrats to vote, and
That's
they
not
won't
the
vote.
point, Mr. President. The point is that there are equities to be weighed, and we're here to have a
I did.
Let me say this.
We did win
Let me say this.
North Dakota
This
and
is a
India.
most unfortunate thing. We came in here in good faith, and we're entering into this kind of a discussion in the public view.
But it's not bad,
Let
Nancy.
us, no,
It's called transparency.
I know, it's not transparency when we're not stipulating to a set of facts, and when we wanted to have a debate with you about saying we confront some of those facts without
You
saying
know
to
what?
the
We
public,
need border security.
this
That's
isn't
what we're going to be
true.
talking about, border security. If we don't have border security, we'll shut down the government. This country needs border security.
We
The
agree
wall
with
is a
that.
part of border security.
The Biden administration may give hundreds of millions of dollars in payouts to migrant families that were separated at the border due to policies under former President Donald Trump. Immigrant families may receive around $450,000 a person in compensation, according to reports.
Nancy Pelosi is currently the Speaker of the House for the United States government. And next week, her and the rest of Congress are going to vote on a $52 billion funding bill that is going to put money into the microchip industry in America. Now, Nancy knows that this vote is, and she's also been talking to a lot of the people that are going to be voting on this bill. And if the bill passes, companies like Intel and Nvidia that are based in the United States are probably going to do extremely well. And that just makes it even more interesting to see that Nancy Pelosi in the month of June sold off her Apple position, sold off her Visa position, and she purchased shares in Nvidia. Now, if a regular person did something like that and traded based off non-public information, that's what's called insider trading. But when the government does it, it's just called planning ahead.
Turn now to that $350 billion fund to help small businesses and its workers get through the shutdown.
It will be up to Congress to restock it.
But Democrats blocking that move this morning.
They asked for $250 billion in 48 hours. I said, well, I don't think so. They objected, and I congratulate the Senate Democrats.
Speaker Pelosi, what are you going to share with us from your home?
Chocolate candy.
Thousands have been forced to wait for hours at food banks all across the country.
This is chocolate, and then we have some other chocolate here. We just got it restocked with the ice cream.
You don't want to eat up everything all at one time.
I can't do it much longer. I'm trying so hard.
We were, shall we say, enjoying.
Having to admit that, yeah, we're starving, and
I like it better than anything else.
Taping this segment, there are 22 million people out of work.
This specific program is about stopping job losses today.
This is hurting people bad.
Other people in our family look for some other flavors, but
right now it's survival move. You don't know where that next something else is going to come from.
I don't know what I would have done if ice cream were not invented. I just wonder.
Be banned from trading individual stocks while serving in Congress?
No, I don't know to the second one. We have a responsibility to report in the stock, on the stock, but I'm not familiar with that 5-month review, but if people aren't reporting, they should be.
Why should they be banned?
Because this is a free market and people, we're a free market economy. They should be able to participate in that.
They have a responsibility slightly above your pay grade. That's a real tough decision. That's why they get paid the big bucks. That's why they get the limos and you don't. I mean this sincerely. I'm not trying to be flip. Every president, every secretary of state has to do it. Like I said, they get paid more than you. Their job's a hell of a lot more complicated than yours. They may have made the wrong decision, and you brought it to life. That's a real tough decision.
Over the course of your career, has your husband ever made a stock purchase or sale based on information he received from you?
No, absolutely not.
Okay. Accepted and participated in a very large IPO deal from Visa at a time there was major legislation affecting their credit card companies making its way through the House. And did you consider that to be a conflict of interest?
I don't know what your point is of your question. Is there some point that you want to make with that?
Well, I guess what I'm asking is, do you think it's all right for a speaker to accept a very preferential and favorable stock deal?
Well, we did.
And you participated in the IPO.
Well, I have many
and at the time you were
investments,
Speaker of the House. You don't think it was a conflict of interest or have the appearance of a conflict of interest?
No, it only has appearance if you decide that you're going to have elaborate on a false premise. But it's not true, and that's that.
I don't understand what part's not true.
Has exposed that Hillary Clinton personally agreed with the decision to feed the unverified and quickly debunked theory that Trump was communicating secretly with Russia through a backdoor Alpha Bank channel.
Fox News alert on the trial of former Clinton campaign lawyer Michael Sussman. Hillary Clinton's 2016 campaign manager Robbie Mook testified today that Clinton herself approved the idea of giving the Alpha Bank story to a reporter as part of the Trump-Russia narrative. As you'll remember, that suggested that there were connections between Alpha Bank and the Trump campaign server. The FBI looked into that and found nothing suspicious.
So even now, it came out yesterday at this trial that she put out a tweet that Trump is tied up with a Russian bank. You saw that one, right? That was right before the election. That Trump is totally controlled and tied up, a vicious tweet by a Russian bank. That was just before the election of 2016. And think of that. And they made up the story. Think about what Schiff said. Schiff got up and said, Donald Trump Jr. will be in prison for what he's done with Russia, and they knew it was a con. Who would say that somebody's going to prison and they knew it was a con? And the one thing that has really come out here is these people sat around a table and they made it up. And I remember watching Robbie Mook, who I don't know at all. He was being interviewed by a certain person, I won't mention his name, and they talked about Russia, and it was before the election. And he reminded me of John Lovitz. Remember the liar on Saturday Night Live, John Lovitz? He'd go like, yeah, I'm a great businessman. Yeah, that's it. I went to Harvard. That's right. Okay, so this was Robbie Mook, and it was like they asked him about Russia. Yeah, I think Russia. That was the first time I ever heard it. It was almost like, yeah, that's a good idea. And it was unbelievable for 3 years. And not only that caused great danger to the country, it was a total con job, and she was totally aware of it. That was her lawyer, Sussman.
You know, the only other adversary of ours who's anywhere near as good as the Russians is China. So why should Russia have all the fun? And since Russia is clearly backing Republicans, why don't we ask China to back us?
I hereby tonight ask China.
That's right. And not only that, China, if you're listening, why don't you get Trump's tax returns? I'm sure our media would richly reward you. You know,
biased and false news has become all too common on social media.
More alarming, some media outlets publish these things simply aren't true without checking facts first.
Unfortunately, some members of the media use their platforms to push their own personal bias and agenda to control exactly what people think. And this is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
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 Can you give us a question? Mr. President-elect.
Go ahead.
Mr. President-elect, since you are attacking our news organization, can you give us a chance?
Your organization
You are
is
attacking
terrible.
our news organization.
Your organization
Can you give
is
us a
terrible.
chance
Let's
to
go.
ask a question, sir?
Go ahead.
Sir, can you state,
Quiet.
Mr. President-elect,
Go ahead.
can you state
She's asking
categorically,
a question.
Mr.
Don't be rude.
President-elect, can you give us a question?
Don't be
You're
rude.
attacking us. Can you give us a question?
Don't be rude.
Can you
No, I'm
give
not
us a
going to give you a
question?
question. I'm not going to give you a question.
Can you state categorically?
You are fake news.
Sir,
go ahead.
Can you state categorically that nobody... No, Mr. President-elect, that's not appropriate.
It was not a rigged election. It was not a stolen election. You and your supporters lost more than 60 court cases on the election. It's been nearly 2.5 years. Can you publicly acknowledge that you did lose the 2020 election?
Let me just go on. If you look at True the Vote, they found millions of votes on camera, on government cameras, where they were stuffing ballot boxes.
What you just said there, Republican officials debunked those claims about fraudulent ballots. We want to give you a chance tonight.
Who?
Republican officials in Georgia and every single state. There is no, your own election officials, Mr. President. So we wanted to give you a chance.
People were afraid to take on the issue. All you have to do is take a look at government cameras. You'll see them. People going to 28 different voting booths to vote, to put in 7 ballots apiece.
But Mr. President,
and they're all
I
on
have
camera.
to stop you there because there is no evidence of that. Your own election officials testified to that and have said that Republicans in these states.
No evidence of vote fraud in this election? There's plenty at this point. An election training video in Detroit, #DetroitLeaks, shows that ballot counters were instructed to enter challenge ballots into vote tabulating machines in Wayne County. Normally, challenge ballots would be set aside and not counted. And White House Press Secretary Kayleigh McEnany told Sean Hannity this week that the Trump campaign has 234 pages of sworn affidavits from witnesses alleging vote fraud.
They are alleging this is one county, Wayne County, Michigan. They are saying that there was a batch of ballots where 60% had the same signature. They are saying that 35 ballots had no voter record, but they were counted anyway. That 50 ballots were run multiple times through a tabulation machine. That one woman said her son was deceased, but nevertheless somehow voted.
In Nevada, at least 10,000 non-residents were allowed to send in ballots for counting there. And what about Pennsylvania and other states? Well, here to share some evidence is Neil McCabe. He's communications director at Project Veritas. Neil, Thanks for your time. So I know your organization and James O'Keefe are known for your many undercover videos. We've shown portions of them over the years. Now, you've received more than 12,000 tips about fraud this time, some from whistleblowers afraid to come forward. So tell us what you've discovered overall.
Well, you know, Gary, we've received, as you said, thousands and thousands of phone calls and emails, and we're sifting through all of them. We have a special team of people dedicated to make sure that we sort of separate the wheat from the chaff. But we do have very important whistleblowers who have come forward. 2 postal workers in Traverse City, Michigan, confirmed to us that late ballots were being collected, sorted separately so that they could be postmarked November 3rd. And these are late ballots that came in after Election Day. Richard Hopkins, who is a mail carrier in Erie, Pennsylvania, he came forward with a similar account. He said that he overheard his postmaster rebuking a supervisor because one of the late ballots that came in was postmarked November 4th instead of the 3rd. Now, Hopkins said he heard this on the morning of November 5th. Now, Hopkins originally spoke to us with a disguised voice and a blurred face. Eventually, he decided he wanted to come on the record with his own name, and so he did that. He also swore out an affidavit, which was submitted to the Senate Judiciary Committee and acknowledged by South Carolina Republican Senator Lindsey Graham as being a keystone document in his investigation into election fraud. Since then, Hopkins has received tremendous pressure to change his account, and he endured more than 3 hours of an interrogation from an agent from the Post Office Inspector General Office who was flown in from New York City, Gary, to basically work him over and to, quote, update, unquote, his statement.
Okay.
This Inspector General, go ahead.
Okay, Neil, I want to show a clip of that right now because we have a clip that you guys provided. So here it is.
It's getting crazy, right? And it's out of a lot of people's control. And so the reason they called me in is to try to harness that storm, try to reel it back in before it gets really crazy. We like to control our mind, and when we do that, we can convince ourselves of a memory. I'm not scaring you, but I am scaring you.
Neil, the Washington Post reported that after that federal interrogation, Hopkins recanted his story, but Hopkins later released a video saying that's not true. So what's going on here? Is Hopkins believable?
Regardless, the report is now here. It has dropped, and it might not have produced everything of what some Republicans hoped for. It is, regardless, devastating to the FBI, and to a degree, it does exonerate Donald Trump.
Let's put it this way. There is absolutely no collusion. That has been proven. When you look at the committees, whether it's the Senate or the House, everybody my worst enemies, they walk out, they say, there is no collusion, but we'll continue to look. They're spending millions and millions of dollars. There is absolutely no collusion. I didn't make a phone call to Russia. I have nothing to do with Russia. Everybody knows it. So now even the Democrats admit there's no...
I always thought about him, and if you follow him, I think you can see it as well. He accuses people of doing things he himself is doing. It's a form of psychological projection, and I always thought that his record in business in particular, but then as we saw him in politics and government, he was someone who cared nothing about rules, he cared nothing about the law.